Thanks for listening to the Swearing In podcast, where you'll hear the origin stories of those who chose to serve. So ground your gear, take a seat, and listen up. The Swearing In podcast starts right now.
All right, listen up. I am Marty Smith, and this is the Swearing In podcast. My guest today is Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Owen Freeland. He attended high school in Biloxi, Mississippi, and joined the Air Force in 1997 as a Precision Measurement Equipment Laboratory, or PMEL, airman. His first assignment was to Mountain Home Air Force Base, Idaho, in 1998. In 2000, he cross-trained to communications, got married, went to tech school at Keesler Air Force Base, Mississippi, and was then assigned to Peterson Air Force Base, Colorado. In 2003, he put a package in for Officer Candidate School and was commissioned as a 33 Sierra communications officer. After attending OCS at Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama, and basic comm officer training back at Keesler, he was assigned to Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska. In 2008, he was deployed to Al Udeid and was promoted to captain after his return. He was next assigned to U.S. AFCENT at Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina, and in 2012, he deployed to Afghanistan for a year. After returning in 2013, he was assigned to Fort Meade, Maryland. There, he was promoted to major and was selected to attend Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas in 2016. In 2017, he was selected to command a cyber detachment at Fort Meade. After command, he was assigned to Cybercom staff. He was promoted to lieutenant colonel in 2019 and was assigned to U.S. Spacecom at Peterson Space Force Base in 2022. Lieutenant Colonel Freeland is set to retire in 2024. Now, this concludes your pre-brief, so let's get on with the interview. Today, I'm joined by Lieutenant Colonel Owen Freeland. Sir, thanks for it. And usually it's like retired, but this one's not quite retired yet, right?
Yeah, not quite, not yet. Soon though, soon.
So next year you're going to retire?
Yeah, official date of retirement's on 1 May of next year, but with terminal and everything else, it's getting pretty close to the end, and then I got to figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
How did this whole journey start, sir? What were you doing before you came into the military?
Oh, wow. So I'm a military brat. I grew up in the military.
What did your dad do, I assume?
So my dad was Air Force. My grandfather was Air Force. And I always knew that I wanted to go in the military. I've always just something about airplanes. I always wanted to fly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. You go to an air show, you see the Thunderbirds, and I'm hooked, right? And so aviation and jet fuel is in my blood. And so all through high school, I tried Boy Scouts, and that was kind of boring.
Well, I should have started off with, I know you're a military brat. Where'd you go to high school at?
So I went to high school in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
So
kidding.
I've got family there. It's not where I was born. I was, like any other military brat, is where you're from is where you choose to be from, because you've lived so many places.
Right.
So I claimed Biloxi as home, and that's where Dad retired, and went back home with my mom's family, and kind of spent 6 years in going to high school, junior high, whatever, and kind of started from there. But Boy Scouts didn't really do it for me.
Yeah.
So I joined Civil Air Patrol.
Oh, nice. You don't hear that very much anymore.
Yeah, it was because I got to, work on radio, talk on the radios, and I got to fly, and I got to work air shows, and I was just hooked.
That's pretty cool.
I enjoyed the heck out of it. Met some really great friends, still friends to this day.
Yeah.
And, in the friends in high school, I was one of those kids that, everybody else was going to the beach on the weekends, and I was hopping a military airlift flight to go to work a major disaster exercise.
Oh, wow.
And
No kidding.
flying on C-141s, and I've got pictures of me and sit next to a T-38 and in the cockpit of a T-37. Never got to fly in them, but
I was always oh no, did you really? Wow.
Yeah, I was at a summer camp, and the space shuttle happened to land in Columbus, Mississippi for an overnight, and right outside of our facility, and so I got to spend the night looking at the space shuttle. So it was
wow, that's pretty cool.
Blast.
What before we go any further, what did your dad do in the Air Force?
So my dad was an electronics calibration and repair. So
cool.
if you're familiar with that, or TMDE.
Sure.
So it was, he was kind of an electronics nerd. So I grew up dad on the ham radio and ended up getting my ham license to kind of.
No kidding. CQ, right?
Yeah. And I just, I've been a ham since I was 16, still am.
Oh, no kidding. That's great.
So yeah, no, it was a phenomenal experience. And then, I decided, it came time to apply. I applied to the Air Force Academy, and that was, early 90s. So we had a drawdown after the Cold War.
Yes, we did.
And they said, well, you wear glasses, so you can't fly. And
right.
I kind of just burst my balloon. And so I applied for whatever I could, West Point, all the service academies.
Okay.
And the Army called.
You had the grades, you had the sporting background and all that stuff.
I had the background. We'll just say that I wanted to be a pilot, but I didn't focus my studies on being a pilot.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, it was aspirational, I guess. I have a kind of a love-hate with the Air Force Academy, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit later, I guess.
Okay.
I did Army gave me a 3-year Army advanced designee scholarship, so I had to pay for the first year, and then my scholarship kicked in, and the other 3 years, the Army would pay for it, and then I would commission as a second lieutenant in the Army.
Oh, did you say was it you said ROTC?
Correct.
That's pretty cool. That's great, actually.
Dad being a career Air Force guy, he's like, turn them down, just enlist. And I'm like, no, Dad, I'm going to go be an Army officer. You don't know what you're talking about. Like we were talking about earlier, at that age, Mom and Dad weren't the brightest, and I was the rock star and knew everything, and they knew nothing.
Well, you knew the world as it is. They knew the old world.
Yeah, they had the real world view. I just had a myopic view. Absolutely. Right. And they still get tickled about that. And so I'd come home on the weekends, and it was who of this and who of that. My dad he would have great fun with that. Had the high and tight. It was a Marine Corps horseshoe. I was gung ho through and through, and I just drank the Kool-Aid, man. It was. But we'll just say I studied the wrong subjects in college.
Okay.
Fraternity parties and sorority girls weren't necessarily on the curriculum. Didn't really help the grades that much.
It's hard to make it out of those first couple of years in college.
Oh, it is. I was going to school in South Alabama, Mobile, Alabama. And so I was close to home. Yeah. And I just wasn't focused on my studies. It's a great school, great program, computer science program's fantastic.
Right.
But again, I knew everything. Professors knew nothing. Mom and Dad knew nothing. I was going to take the world by storm, and I wasn't going to have to work to get there.
So when that realization hit that the 3-year scholarship piece wasn't going to work,
when the Army kicked me out for my grades.
Okay.
They said, yeah, thanks. But you're done. You've lost your ride. You have 2 choices. You can pay us back, or you can enlist. And, I called Mom and Dad, and I said, what am I going to do? And Dad was like, pay him back. Don't enlist in the Army. I said, all right, Dad. And so for the next year and a half, I was buried in credit card debt. I owed the Army a bunch of money.
Yeah.
I could fit everything I owned in the back of an old rusted out Ford Mustang, 4 cylinders, nothing even cool.
Right.
And for the next year and a half, I was a ramp supervisor for Delta Airlines. So I bounced all over the country.
Oh, geez.
Just for new contracts that we would open up and just doing that. And so I worked 6-7 days a week, 12, 14-hour days, no days off, no medical benefits, no nothing.
A lot of nights, huh?
Yeah. And it was kind of like, so I get done, I get all my bills paid off. And Hurricane Fran, I was in North Carolina. Hurricane Fran hit Raleigh, North Carolina. And
wow, what year was that?
Oh, good Lord. That was 96, I guess.
Okay.
here I am, 22 years old, and the ramp supervisor that owned the kind of the thing was, he and I had a disagreement. It was very, very vocal, because he wasn't a leader, right? He was playing games while we were killing ourselves with no power in the airport, and we're running a full schedule trying to get through this hurricane. And it was a really difficult day. And at the end of the day, he said, I almost fired you today. It was that moment that I said, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And I went to the recruiter the next day and I said, sign me up. He goes, well, you got to watch a video first. And I said, okay. So I watched the video. I said, okay, I'll sign the contract now. And that's how my Air Force journey started. I was
wait, when you went to the recruiter, was it the Army recruiter or Air Force recruiter?
Air Force.
Oh, it was. Okay. All right.
And I was like, okay, I'm ready. It's time to adult.
Yeah.
Because this isn't how I'm going to be able to start a family and take care of a family. And it's not a career. It's a job for a young man. And I want more.
And that was 96 when you walked in the office?
Yeah, sure was.
Did he put you in right away? Did you go delayed enlistment or? So
I went to the delayed enlistment program, went to MEPS, and they said, okay, so what do you want to do? And I said, PMIL, to kind of follow dad.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we don't have any of those jobs. I said, great, put me on the delayed enlistment program because I'm not going to do anything else.
God, you rarely hear that smart guy who goes into the recruiter,
No, I wasn't that smart. I called dad first.
Well, but you were smart enough to call him. So,
yeah,
we've had enough. I mean, you've run into enough people to just take what they give them. And that's the
open general. No, you're not going to make me.
Right.
Love my security forces brothers and sisters, but I wasn't going to play that, let the recruiter play those games with me.
Yeah.
And, they came to me that afternoon, after I went through all the physical stuff and said, well, we've got a job opening up after 4:30. It's PMAL. There's one slot and there's two of you that's applied. And we've looked at your scores. You know what PMAL's about. Very high washout rate, very, very difficult school. A year of electronics at Keesler, my hometown.
Yeah.
And they gave it to me. And that's how this journey started. 27.
Wow. What month you go out to basic then?
So I went to basic in April of 97.
April 97. And then any issues with basic? Was it? I mean, you were older. Yeah. You were older at this point, right?
Yeah, I was the old man at 22 years old in basic training. And I grew up in the Air Force. I knew a lot about the Air Force, and of course, certainly my folks coached me quite a bit through this. And I ended up I guess the TIs are pretty good at picking out people who understand the Air Force system, and Civil Air Patrol prepared me for all of the Air Force history because of the close relationship that Civil Air Patrol has with the Air Force.
Sure.
And so they picked me to be the latrine queen. So the TIs have an interesting way, at least back then. I don't know how it is now, but they had an interesting way of coaching out the leadership amongst their basic training. But my TI was incredible. She was a staff sergeant. Her name was Staff Sergeant Chen. And she was the first woman on the ground in Desert Storm. Persco.
Wow.
And she had some amazing stories talking about her experience. And that always resonated with me. And, later in my career, certainly as an officer, I reached out to her and I said, thank you.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's pretty. And that probably made her day. I would imagine it would, that you came full circle back and told her thanks. I mean, then it's kind of like, oh, I guess I did do it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was right after I took command that I sent her a note.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful.
She invested a lot of herself. And I think all TIs do that, right?
Yeah.
The good ones, maybe don't realize it at the time, but how much and I think that's true for any of the services, as I've worked with all the services over the years. When you're on the trail, if you're in the Army or if you're a TI or a drill sergeant or whatever, they do that for a reason. And it's not to bully, it's not to haze, it's not to do anything else. They are so passionate and so committed to the service, to making sure that we bring in the talent that is trained, that has the right sight picture. And certainly with my soldiers over the years, they've talked to me about when they were at Fort Leonard Wood, and they were training their MPs. And those MPs came in, ended up working for them when they went back to their company or their battalion or whatever. So Yeah, it's very cool how the stories, the services and the name tapes are different, but the passion is still the same.
Sure. It's interesting, an Air Force guy using sight pictures, so I appreciate that. I picked up.
We'll just say that I've got an interesting perspective on service. I'm more purple than I am anything else.
I guess so. Yeah, you are multi-service. So, you get a rope? Were you a rope or anything like that?
No, well, yeah. So when I was at Keesler going through tech school, so PML tech school is a year long.
Okay.
So electronics principles and what back then we called it sets, right? So you do the electronic principles, then you go into the actual your career field. Yeah. And I ended up being a rope, largely because I got sick of the young kids that were trying to prop themselves up.
They got a little power. Yeah.
I didn't care, so I figured, well, if I become a rope, and in the Air Force, a green rope's kind of the basic rope, and then you go all the way up to red rope or whatever. If I do that, then I can keep the other ropes in line and keep them from messing with everybody that was in my bay. And so I ended up doing that. A good friend of mine, we went through tech school today. He was a red rope. He just retired not long ago. He got picked up for an Air Force Academy enlisted slot right out of tech school. He ended up going on to fly B-2s. He's a captain for United Airlines now.
Oh, wow.
And so he's a good dude, but we were all ropes together, and we had a great time. Drill team, we did all that stuff together. That's so it was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was my hometown, so
yeah.
I would, when I got tired of the crap, I called my buddies up that were senior airmen. They'd come check me out, and this in the Air Force, right? A senior airman walks into a barracks and in a training base, and that's big money there. So he could get we got away with murder, and nobody was to the wiser.
Well, and maybe you got away with a little bit more because you were older and you understood how to get away with a little bit more.
You got to learn how to play the game. And Dad gave me that advice before I came in. He goes, the system has been there long before you, and will be there long after you. You would be wise to learn how to work within it and not buck it like he did.
That's pretty good.
So
96 you go in as a year. So I'm sorry, 97. So right. You get out of tech school in 98.
Yeah.
When did you know what your first assignment was going to be?
Probably 3/4 of the way through tech school is when the assignment drops.
And that's a long tech school.
Ended up in Mountain Home, Idaho.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was, phenomenal base, great mission. Back then it was the Air Force. We only had, we called them 911 wings. They were the first of the Air Expeditionary Wing constructs. So it was Seymour Johnson and Mountain Home.
Yeah.
We were a composite wing. So I'm a PML guy. I ended up was working microwave stuff, and ended up starting to get, as I said early on, I've got an affinity for jets and jet fuel, and and I got to start working on we called it Type 4 equipment. So all the radar test sets and weapon test sets and emergency power test sets for the engines. So I got to go to the flight line and the ammo dump, and it was great. But we'd run an exercise. It was, B1s and B2s and F-117s. And you're like, this is where I want to be. And it's Idaho. So I got to go skiing and whitewater rafting and hunting, and it's great.
Yeah.
So that's also where I met my wife.
Really? Was she military too?
Yeah, my wife retired about 5 years ago, but I met, we talk about chow halls, or I guess now we call them DFACs, but I met my wife in a chow hall.
Wow. How did that come about?
It just, hanging out, and you find people that are cool to hang out with and have lunch with. And she was a chaplain's assistant, and I was maintenance. And she wasn't she was kind of awkward like me, I guess. And we ended up being friends for a while, and I was dating somebody else. She was dating somebody else. And one day we just kind of ended up getting
kidding.
And,
what rank was she when you met her?
She was an A1C, and so was I.
All right. Mountain Home's wasn't that big. It's still not that big.
No, right? Still not that big, but it's smaller now, I think, because it's not a composite wing anymore. But very tight knit community, and it was kind of an entrance into the Air Force. It was a family. As an older guy, I'm out hunting and shooting with my supervisors, and I'm not drinking in the dorms, right? I'd already partied myself out of a scholarship, and I knew what goofing off too much was going to cost me. So I started college, and it was an old retired chief that was telling war stories about the Cold War, and standing watch on a alert aircraft with nukes on it, and I'm just hooked, right? And it was kind of there that I had some amazing guys that really took me under their wing and just kind of beat me about the head and shoulders, and won some great awards, but I missed out on below the zone for some political reasons that had nothing to do with me. And
it's always something, for stuff like that.
I wouldn't trade it for the world, honestly, Marty.
No, I was gonna say, you got there. So we're going from 98. What'd you do? 3 years there, or did you do 4?
Yeah, it was right at 3 years. And at that point, the Air Force was deciding that, hey, we're going to contract out one contract worldwide, all female labs.
Oh, wow.
And so the career field was going to die. It was going to go away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, crap. And then the Air Force decided, well, that's probably a bad idea. We're going to break the globe up into regions, and we're going to keep a couple bases per region as active duty, because we have this whole contingency and deployment thing we have to support.
Okay.
And so I saw the writing on the wall. It's like, wait a sec, you're leaving both Koreas open. So if I do a 20-year career, I'm looking at 4, 5, 6 tours to Korea. Yeah, I don't think so. And the original plan was I'm going to do 4 years, get a bunch of experience at PMO. Then I'm going to go to Saudi as a contractor and work for.
Oh, there you go. Get that.
And then I'm going to retire permanently at 35 years old.
That's right. Get that tax-free money over there.
Yeah.
Set yourself up.
Well, and I ended up getting engaged to my wife, and she was on a 6-year hitch, and I was on a 4. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be a dependent. That ain't going to work.
Hell yeah.
And so I re-upped, decided to cross-train into computers, be a computer operator. And I was probably the only guy in the history of that kind of, we called it careers program, where you, at the end of your first hitch, you can cross-train.
Okay.
And I was going to go comm, so great, I got approved for that. And then they said, well, you're not coming back to Mountain Home. I said, well, that's kind of bullshit. I want to stay here. My wife's here, or my fiance's here. I'm going to stay here. I went to the comm squadron commander and begged her to call someone, someone that cared, to keep me at Mountain Home. And she said, I'd love to. Nobody wants to stay here, but they're going to command level you, and you're going to go to Colorado Springs, Colorado, at Air Force Space Command.
Or I guess you could have got married right away and then forced a dual or a spouse thing, I guess, if you wanted to, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And our chaplains were PCSing, so it's all kind of, we had to expedite our wedding. We dated for about 6 or 7 months, and then we got married real quick. We paid for the wedding ourselves. Neither one of us come from any kind of money, so we did the whole wedding for about $2,000.
What year did you get married?
2000.
Okay. Wow. Right in before. So, what year did you re-enlist?
It was 2000.
Okay.
So, yeah, because I mean,
no, wait a minute. Did you get married to try to do the joint spouse?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
She wouldn't have been able to come with me to Colorado because we weren't married.
Right.
And so we never got to do a honeymoon.
Of course, yeah.
My mom worked at the Beau Rivage in Biloxi, and so we kind of she came down, my wife came down with me, and the tech school that I was going through was very gracious and accommodating. So I'd go to school for a couple hours, and then I'd go spend time with my wife.
Oh, nice.
And, got the hotel was phenomenal. That Biloxi there's a lot of businesses that really do support the military, and I was so thankful for that. So they comped us a room. So
you re-upped as comm, right?
Right.
And your tech school is back in Mississippi?
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll see a theme here.
Don't want that part lost or anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Keesler, every time I got homesick, I ended up going TDY or whatever to Keesler. So I got free leave, go home, see my family. And so, yeah, we ended up in Colorado Springs, and I try to figure out how to be a computer operator now. And it turns out that was just, being here has been an amazing assignment.
Yeah.
Finished my college degree, went to Airman Leadership School.
So you came Springs, but you're a Pete, right? You're a Peterson?
Right. I was a Peterson.
Okay.
And then Then 9/11 happened.
I was going to ask you where you were for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on duty. We went into the telephone operator's room because that was the only place in the squadron that had a television, and we're like,
oh yeah,
oh crap. You saw the first tower, like, what kind of idiot runs into a building with a, whatever kind of jet?
Yeah.
And then we saw the second one hit. And then, things kind of ballooned from there. And like, I think any of us would say that day changed everything for us.
Sure.
For, the remainder of our careers, in my case. And we went into Delta, we closed the doors to the mountain.
Right.
We kicked all the contractors off base, and for comm at Peterson at that time, and I think it still is, it was all contracted. So like, well, we have no system administrator privileges, we really can't do anything. And I get a phone call to go up to the 4-star's office to fix his computer. I'm like, this isn't going to com well. I'd never seen a general officer at that point.
Oh yeah. Oh geez. Was he Northcom or?
No, I was Air Force Space Command.
Space
General
Command.
Everhart.
Okay.
And hell, when I was maintenance, we had 2 officers in the squadron of 400. I get to Peterson, and there's 15 lieutenants, so you can't walk around the hall without bumping into an officer. And that, for a career maintainer, that was a little foreign. It took some time to get used to that. But lieutenants were amazing, and had a crusty NCO who was a maintainer who they had to spend some time with me correcting perhaps my language and my approach to things as comm and not maintenance. So they were great.
Yeah. Okay, so you get it's still kind of freaky when you go home and talk to the wife, right? You didn't get restricted to base or anything like that when.
Oh yeah, we were 12. Well, she was at that point. She's active duty too, so we were both in the same boat. No kids, so we were working crazy hours. She ended up deploying, and I had to stay home. I had orders to go work with special operations, and that ended up not being a real tasker. And so they sent my wife to Oman, Jordan, and as we were for
like an ILO tasking or doing what her AFS.
Yeah, it was an ILO.
Oh, okay, all right.
At that point, she's a chaplain's assistant or a paralegal. No, she was a paralegal at that point, and she'd cross-trained as well. And so they sent my wife to war. I'm at home. The only thing I had was my dogs, and just absolutely going insane, right?
Yeah.
Just trying to wrap my brain around. They sent my wife to war, and I've got to be at home.
Yeah.
Keeping the home front one. And it was awesome. It was difficult. There was moments there where they went into comm blackout, so I couldn't talk to my wife for months at a time. Come to find out that there was people over there that were hitting on my wife because what goes on deployed stays deployed, and my wife's not that way.
Yeah.
And so that's not going well with me either. We'd only been married a couple of years at that point, and so
you were really bouncing off the walls.
Oh, I was a head case.
Oh God.
But my troop, his wife was in the same boat, so we were golfing a lot, and then going to college, at night at Colorado Christian, and met my best friend there.
Oh, nice.
And he almost cost me a divorce. He said, "Hey, you should get a motorcycle. It's great." And ended up buying a motorcycle. Didn't tell my wife. That didn't go well with her, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
And she, but that was buying that bike kind of opened up new things and new relationships that I didn't know. And we started doing a Wednesday night ride down to downtown Colorado Springs at an Irish pub. We were riding Triumph motorcycles, some British bikes.
Nice.
And that was our thing. It was what we looked forward to. And so wife got home. I asked forgiveness a lot. Still am, all these years later.
How long was her deployment?
6 months.
Okay. Not too bad, but still.
No, but it was the base that we were launching B-1s out of that, bombing everything that looked like Saddam Hussein was getting a bomb from a B-1.
Right.
And, but that's where, one night, I'd finished my degree or just about to finish my degree. And that's when I ran across some crazy major who was riding a Harley or whatever Ron was riding at that point. He said, "You should apply for OTS." Like, yeah, officers kind of suck. I really don't like officers. I'm an NCO. I'm up for tech sergeant at that point.
Yeah.
And E6. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. No, you should do it. You should do it. Well, Ron was a flyer, You see the theme here, right? Going back to jet fuel in the blood.
Yeah.
And filled my head full of hope that I could fly.
Oh, he did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Terrible.
Ron should have been a recruiter.
No kidding. He's good. He's very good.
But I didn't know him. I just met him at the little pub, and he starts filling my head full of this stuff. And he looks me up, and he starts just absolutely pounding me every week. He was on me. Put your package in yet? Put your package in.
Geez.
I didn't know this guy. I'm like, this crazy fool wants me to. Fine, just to shut him up. And my troops were like, hey, you complain a lot about officers. Why don't you go become one and teach them the officer corps how to take care of enlisted? And I had some run-ins and with some lieutenants that didn't know how to take care of enlisted troops.
Right.
And had a chief that was in the squadron that was amazing. Ralph was he held the lieutenants to a standard.
Did he?
You didn't want to cross this chief. He was an old school chief.
Okay. All right.
And, and so I put the package in, was successful. I got picked up.
When did you put it in? What year was this now?
This is 2003. Well, so, as I'm getting picked up to go to fly, right, I got picked up to be a navigator. I'm like, sweet. My favorite airplane of all time is the F-15 Strike Eagle. I love that plane. Have never been in the cockpit be able to go fly. But I still love that plane. And that's what I want to go do. I want to be a RIO or a weapons officer in the back seat of that jet, because I couldn't fly it, but I can be in it or be one.
Well, that's if you can't be Maverick, you're going to be Goose, right?
That's right.
That's the way to go. So
in my case, probably a duck. But anyway, the Air Force Academy, right? The Air Force Academy, I get all the way through my flying class 1. I'm good, and I get to the hearing test.
Wait, we jumped way too far, sir.
Oh. So
you just put your package in what year?
It was the first time.
We didn't even talk about that part. So
I'm special that way. It's short bus special, in the sense that I got picked up to be a navigator. Ron's pushing me. He's calling the Pentagon, trying to find out board results, and I get selected. Right. Sweet. I'm going to go be an officer. I'm going to go be a air crew. I'm going to fly in the F-15. All is good.
What year was that?
This is 03.
Okay, 03.
So finished the degree. All is good. Did well on the AFOQT, the Air Force Officer Qualification Test.
Yeah.
And the education counselor, she told me, she goes, now this gets interesting. Never give up, ever.
Oh, jeez.
She told me that I was the most difficult package that she had ever submitted that got it picked up. Those are her.
Okay. What was her reasoning behind that then?
Well, so I'd been remember I talked about, I'd flunked out of college. So I had a 2.2 GPA. I was in a prior commissioning program and I got dropped. So there's 2 waivers. Oh. I had a couple of entanglements with law enforcement.
Oh.
As a teenager and as a 20-year-old college student.
Okay.
So I needed a moral waiver. And then, so I had, 4 or 5, 6 waivers. It was crazy. And
wow.
Yeah. I mean, and in my statement that I sent to the board was like, I came into the Air Force broke, and an absolute screw up. The Air Force gave me purpose. Oh. It gave me focus. It brought a path. We can talk about distance and direction. The Air Force gave me all of those things or helped me realize what my distance and direction was.
Wow.
And so then I get to the Air Force Academy to do the hearing test, and I failed it.
No.
And they medically disqualified me. I have what's called asymmetrical hearing. So my hearing, my left ear is worse than my right. And if I was already an officer, it's waiverable by the Surgeon General of the Air Force. But because I was in a pre-commissioning program, there's no waivers.
Wow. Did you know this condition prior?
Say again?
Did you know of this condition prior?
I knew that I had tinnitus and hearing loss, right?
Okay.
But I had no idea that that was going to disqualify me from flying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in fairness to the Air Force, right? They're concerned about you're going to be on the flight line more. You're going to, more hearing loss because you're going to be around loud aircraft. Absolutely understand that. And we'll just say I was a little bitter at that moment.
Yeah.
It's like the process over. I got picked up on a flying board. And
how about what's the time frame here?
So this is all going on in 2003, early 2003.
So what they came and said that they wanted to medical board you because you're hearing?
No, not medical board me. They medically disqualified me. So
I'm sorry.
You gotta have a flying class 1 physical, flight physical.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I forgot.
On everything.
The dreaded flight physical. That's right.
Yeah, as I talk to air crew, friends that are air crew, they all have a great appreciation and respect for the flight physical.
Well, and here was the screwed up part. For 10 years as a 1 Charlie 6 space operator,
yeah,
they required you to have a flight physical. And I was like, all right, I understand the color blindness, but all the other stuff,
Well, so. The irony, if you think back when I applied to the Air Force Academy, they told me I couldn't fly because of my eyes. Well, us enlisted guys, they finally opened up PRK, LASIK.
They did. That's right.
And so the Air Force Academy fixed my eyes and then told me I couldn't fly because of my hearing. So like I said, it's a love-hate with the Academy. It's a phenomenal school. The Air Force Academy was not in the cards for me.
Right.
A lot of friends have gone through the Academy and have done extremely well. Love it dearly, all the service academies, but the Air Force Academy in particular, there's a history there. And so I reapplied, got picked up to be a comm officer. I wanted to be a maintenance officer, but they picked me up to be a commo.
That's what I mean. Did you reapply that same year, or did you wait to? Okay, all right.
So at that point they had a lot of boards, and it was the 2003 2004 timeline. So the Air Force was really assessing a lot of officers, and ROTC and the Air Force Academy are kind of fixed in the amount of people they can assess. Yeah. So OTS becomes that buffer, OCS for the Army and the Marine Corps, and Navy and whatnot.
Well, that was a great time. I mean, I don't mean to say it was a great time, but for the military, that's when the military is all ramping up and they can't get enough, right?
So half my class at OTS, more than half my class at OTS were NCOs or enlisted, right?
Yeah, good.
So then I go off to Maxwell, and that was OTS was interesting. There's an NCO going in there. I was in class. I had guys that were special operations. They were TAC-Ps, JTACs.
Yeah.
There was guys that were on Roberts Ridge when that happened.
Wow. Wow.
The PJs that were killed, their supervisor was in my class.
Jeez.
But it was interesting because you get to OTS and the OTS instructors, the cadre there, right? These are first lieutenants or captains, so they're pretty young. One in particular, he was going back to Army. Everything was hua this, and this guy's a captain. Right? So when I was in the Army, this was that guy, right?
Yeah, right.
And it was hua. And I'm laughing at him. I got the opportunity late in training, and I said, "Hey, so how long were you in the Army?" Talk about be true to yourself. He'd done 1 year Army ROTC. And I'm like, okay, I see how this is.
That's enough to wear on your sleeve for everybody who's not done 1 year,
And I mean, he disqualified himself. And I mean,
yeah.
But you saw people trying to pretend, not pretending, but to embellish perhaps something that they are. Yeah. And so I go back to the video's acting up again. There we go. I go back to always be true to yourself. Another tenet, right? The words please and thank you is the reason that I've been successful in my career, both enlisted and an officer. And then be true to yourself. Right? Yeah. And so many people have officer enlisted, all the services have really hammered that point home. So anyway, I end up doing well at OTS. It was cool because Ron, the guy that pushed me, this crazy major, flew down to commission me in the Air Force.
And that's that picture.
Nice. My dad had been retired at that point for, 25, 30 years, 20 years. My dad got back in his service dress, was my first salute.
Oh, wow.
Right. So, all right, great. I'm a second lieutenant. which means jack and nothing.
Yeah, true. Yeah. But you gotta start that journey, right?
When I was enlisted, I tortured many second lieutenants because that's what I could do. Force them to salute you. You spread apart. So instead of one salute, they just, if you're the standard second lieutenant games.
Right.
And so now is my turn. And first duty station's off at Nebraska. And in Omaha, I wanted to go back to Colorado, but they wouldn't let you go back to the same area that you commissioned from.
What was your AFSC then?
I was a 33 Sierra comm officer, communications officer.
Okay.
And
what was your assignment at Offutt? Do you remember?
I was in the 55th Comm Squadron.
Okay.
Originally, it was to go to be in the Mobile Command and Control Squadron, 755th Mobile Command and Control Squadron, which was doing a nuclear command and control mission. It was awesome assignment. When I was at OTS, I met some great cadre, one of which is now a full-bird colonel. I'll talk about him, Joe, in a minute. But so I get to, I'd gone through the cadre. I found the ones that were kind of tools, but I found the ones that were Mustang officers that were, there's the game, and then there's these guys are captains. Some of these guys are really experienced captains.
Yeah. And,
when you get right before you graduate at OTS, you get to go talk to them, guys that were in your career field, and you kind of get all right, what do I need to be thinking about as I go into this first assignment? Consequently, real quick story there, being an NCO, we had a dining out. Our spouses got to come and everything else. And then spouses went back to the hotels, and we go back to the barracks, and it was a true dining out. So we had a grog bowl, and we partook a lot, and might have been a little on the tipsy side, but it was prank time for the cadre. And we filled up their cube farm. So it was it was fishbowl, and we filled it up with, 4,000 or 5,000 balloons.
Oh, nice.
And not into their offices, because there's PII and all that other crap.
Yeah, sure.
And some of those cadre, remember, some of these captains and lieutenants were, just say focused on the wrong thing, and they couldn't handle the prank, and they were wanting to really come after us. And my field training instructor, she was like, "Yeah, you guys are stupid." And they had a great time. They thought it was funnier than all get out. So I get through with that, and get to Omaha, and I ended up going to basic comm officer training en route back at Keesler.
Oh, jeez.
There's a theme here. Had a great time. Brought some of my classmates home to meet my folks, have dinner at the house. Right, we're all lieutenants, we're all officers.
Yeah.
One of the guys, he was my lower class at OTS. We get to Omaha. We're second lieutenants together. We're in BCOP together. Nate ended up being a friend for many years, and did incredibly well. Recently retired. He was I think he was a tech sergeant when he commissioned, but he was on track to be a full-bird colonel, and just said, for family reasons, it's time.
Oh, okay.
And so he punched out, and he's I've kind of lost track of him. I think he's still in San Antonio somewhere. But get through with comm officer training and get to Omaha, and there's like 13 or 14 of us lieutenants. There's a mafia.
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, and we had a great time.
Where was your wife at while you were doing your comm school and all that?
She stayed here in Colorado, and then once I commissioned, we PCS'd into Omaha.
Okay, all right. Was SAC still around then? Or
no, SAC was gone. It was STRATCOM.
But still, you got the SAC attitude. I'm sure.
Well, very much so, because we had the NC3 mission. We were part of the 55th Comm Group, so there was the MCCS, which was doing the tactical NC3.
Yeah. You
had the traditional base comm, which is what I was, and then you had the kind of strategic comm that was supporting STRATCOM, and that was the for the life of me, it's Strategic Comm Squadron, 55th Strategic Comm Squadron.
Okay.
And so I'm a lieutenant at Offutt. I get there, and I'm sitting they didn't know what to do with all those lieutenants, so I get stuck in the commander's action group for the group commander.
Oh.
And I'll never forget this guy. It was a guy from Air Combat Command that calls and says, "I'm sitting at the desk practicing. All right, 55th Comm Group, Lieutenant Freeland. And I'm doing this multiple times. Sure enough, that phone rang, and it was 55th Com Quantum Lieutenant Freeland. It was ACC.
Oh, no.
And the guy goes, "Well, which is it, Lieutenant?" I said, "It's Lieutenant now." And he goes, "You might want to work on that." I said, "Yeah, thanks."
Yeah.
And that kind of set the tone for Omaha. But, right into that assignment, couple of months into it, they put me in charge of the personal wireless comm system. So all the bricks and the ground to air transmits.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And all that stuff. And they said, "Oh, here you go. It's the most broke unit in the wing. If this office fails, the wing fails, it's IG inspection. You got 4 months to fix it. Good luck." And
you probably got the biggest hand receipt or the biggest number of line items that you got to go account for.
Oh God, yes. I mean, there was, I don't know, like 600 bricks, and half of them are broken, and the two civil service guys in there that, they were kind of disenfranchised, and they didn't have any real motivation to work. They were, it was in the whole MEO thing, and they were like GS4s or whatever. And so they weren't real happy, and they ended up leaving and quitting. So here I am with nobody in the office. It's the second largest or first largest spectrum environment with number of frequency allocations because of the NAOC and the TACAMO and Stratcom and all the other PL1 assets there. And here's those second lieutenants, never done wireless comms before. At best, I'm a ham radio operator, and that's all I know. And 4 months to fix this, and I'm like, I just got it set up to fail, and this is not good for the first job.
Yeah, it's sure kind of sounding that way. Yeah.
But I had, phenomenal leadership at the squadron and group level, and found a tech sergeant that had done that work before. I'm like, "Hey, you're going to have to take me to class because I'm kind of dumb." Yeah. And he was a telephone maintenance guy, but he had cross-trained over from PWIX. And, we ended up doing great. And it's just a team, right? It was such an amazing team. Right. We ended up doing a lot of great things in that office, and got some great civilians hired one of them, I think he just retired out of it. He was a base spectrum manager, won all kinds of awards. And, just being a part of these guys, this mission for a couple years. Yeah. And then kind of tracking what's happened, because you got a personal invested relationship and at that point. And so they've gone on to do wonderful things. But I've got pictures that I was in the cops were sending all their patrol cars downtown to get them wired. I'm like, "Why are you doing that? That's dumb. We could do that right here in the shop." I bought the tools and hired the right people. And so we started doing all the cop radios. And one of my civilians snapped a picture of me in the trunk of a cop car, installing an antenna as a second lieutenant. And then she sent that to the wing commander.
There you go. Right.
Thanks, Sue. And she was awesome, right? And so from there, I ended up being a deputy flight commander, working for a guy whose call sign was Thor. He was a Mustang officer as well.
Oh, geez.
And we, keep in mind, I stole the wing commander's car from the club because he knew what we were doing. Like, "Sir, I need your keys." Secondly, this first lieutenant at that point, he's like, "I need your keys." "Yeah, they're in the car. What are you going to do?" "Don't worry about it, sir. I'll take care of it." So some first Friday, and we ended up installing because he was trying to talk to the aircraft, the RJs, and was having a lot of comm problems. And we had the radio, we just couldn't ever get the car to install the damn radio. So I stole his car, and I get a phone call. At that time, the call sign was Father Freeland. He's like, "Hey, I need my car back." So here we have the wing commander captured in our little, bay. His execs have no idea where he is. They're freaking out. And he's over there having a good old time, because it's just the captain and myself, and we were telling him, "Here's how you work the radio, sir. Here's how here's this and this and this." And he's just having a great time. His name is Jim Jones. Later ended up, I think, making 2 stars and whatever. Phenomenal wing commander.
Yeah.
So I take over as a deputy flight commander working for Thor, and he's a Mustang. I'm a Mustang. And it was fun. We were maintenance, right? So you put the two of us characters and give you kind of an example of what this looked like, right? Wing safety was coming around doing a safety inspection of the maintenance flight.
Okay.
All right. You know how that goes, right? They're coming down, make sure. Air Force occupational safety and all that stuff that safety folks do. It's important, right? But like, hey, let's have some fun with them. Yeah, there I was. Thor is mixed martial arts instructor. He bouncer at a bar before he commissioned, right? So we go over to his gym. He was teaching on base and whatever else. Well, he had all the hitting sticks and whatever else.
Yeah.
One of them was about a 4-foot baton that they use in Japan, but it was made out of fiberglass and it was padded and everything else.
Oh, okay.
And it was kind of a hitting thing. And so we decided we're going to have some fun with wing safety. So they're sitting outside the office, and he starts yelling at me. He's cursing up a storm. Lieutenant Freeland, get in here. So we do the standard thing. Proceeding, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Come in, give him a reporting statement, the whole 9 yards. And he's berating me and telling me I'm incompetent, I'm an idiot, and whatever else. And he says, assume the possession. So I bent over. Oh, yeah. Held my arm out. And he takes a stick and just whacks the crap out of me with it. And it's made out of fiberglass and it's shreds, right? And so it sounds really loud. Yeah, I smarted a little bit. And I said, well, that be all, sir. So I get out of my office. So proceeding, sir, and I go back to my desk and start working again. And wing safety is outside the office, and their jaw is on the floor. They had no idea what to do. And our squadron safety is looking like, those two idiots are at it again.
Oh, no.
And we start laughing at that point. But we had a reputation throughout the whole base, and that's kind of the way we ran that maintenance flight. Was we were out there with a chainsaw or whatever, a cut saw, cutting ILS or nav aids off the runway because we could replace them because that was part of our flight.
Yeah.
And running excavators and had a ball.
As I look back to my career, anybody who enjoys their job gets that reputation. They're and people say, those guys are screwing around, or those guys are they're always playing pranks or something, but you do it because you enjoy being there. So that much is obvious, and it must have been for you guys too.
Well, and it was for the crews, right? We had we had tech control or outside plant guys. We were digging holes. We got them a trencher to start saving us money, and it was $90,000 or something like that at a point. And we got them the equipment that they needed. Our telephone maintenance guys, got them the stuff that they needed, and when they were working the weekends, we were right there with them.
Yeah, that makes a difference. Yeah.
Well, and Thor taught me a lot, right? And once a quarter, he and I and the chief would get together and we would cook the guys' breakfast, the crew's breakfast.
Oh, wow. Out
of our pocket, right? And we would serve them.
Yeah.
And it was a way of putting things into perspective. And it's something that I've held true to the entirety of my officer career. Was I still have a uniform with stripes on it, so that I never lost that perspective of why I crossed over into the O side. But the squadron commander at the time, still a good friend, great mentor, would be one of my retiring officers.
Nice.
Kerry Anburn. There was 3 of us that he called his lieutenants, and he still calls us that today. One of them just retired. He's lieutenant colonel. I'm retiring as light colonel. And then the other one, she's a rock star amongst us. She just made 06, take over group command. Wow. But when Kerry turned 40, it was the 3 of us lieutenants, our shirt, and a couple others. And there's a balloon theme here. We filled his office full of balloons.
Oh no! Again.
And drank all his beer that was in his fridge, and put the empty bottles back in his fridge. Because back then, we could do those things. And
right.
Kerry was from the flying community, so he had a phenomenal sense of humor. But then we emptied the shredder machine into key balloons, so they weren't just air.
No!
Oh yeah!
Wow!
And Kerry came in the next morning. He kept, all us giggling buffoons were outside his office, like, I got to see the colonel's face. Got to see his face. And he took it as intended.
Yeah.
And that kind of set the path for many years of mentorship with Kerry.
That's great. Yeah.
And who's taken phenomenal care of us. But all of that set a tone about, play your position on the team.
Yeah.
When you're in charge, be in charge. When you're in support, be in support. Never lose track of that you're playing a position and it's not about you.
That's true. Yeah, very good.
That assignment is also where I picked up the call sign sheetrock, and Kerry's the one that gave it to me.
Sheetrock.
Yeah, I've earned it. It wasn't chosen, and I tried to get rid of it over the years, and it kept coming back, and I finally went through a naming ceremony. Back in cyber ops. And once you go through a naming ceremony, you own it. You might as well embrace it because you will never, ever get rid of it.
What's the story behind that nickname?
So there I was. Normally it costs you a beer, right? But you know, it's kind of hard to do on this format. But Thor, my captain, I called him up and said, hey, I'm finishing my basement. I need some help with this drywall. And went up and picked up, I don't know, 12, 14 sheets of drywall. Now, keep in mind at this point, the new Hemi Dodges had just come out. And I'm driving a Dodge diesel that had been slightly modified. I have an affinity for horsepower.
No.
Goes back to jet fuel. And I like fast things. Right? And so Thor and I had been talking trash. I mean, about whose truck was faster, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
This is Omaha in the fall, so it's raining. I got all this drywall. I had it tarped, and he'd help me, and he's following me in his truck. And we're running down the highway. I forget the name of it now. And the tarp starts coming off. So we pull over, get the tarp situated. And now at this point, I've got 700 pounds of sand in the bed of the truck because winter's coming, right? And you need to work back into these trucks. This is where it starts. I told him, I said, I'll bet you I can still do a burnout with 700 pounds of weight and like 20 something sheets of drywall. Yeah, you see where this is going.
Yeah.
Sure. And so I put it in stupid mode. I had a tuner on this truck and it's diesel, right? And sure enough, now it's done because the roads are wet. So it's not really proving anything, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
And I started just doing a massive, epic burnout, and I'm just having a great time. Well, the tailgate was down on the truck. And so here's however many sheets, 20 sheets of drywall come out of the back of my truck, land in the middle of the highway. Thor almost wrecks his brand new truck because he's laughing so hard. He's like, you're an idiot. Like, shut up and help me load this. Let's go. He goes, wouldn't it be funny if somebody from the squadron comes by? And here comes our deputy squadron commander.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Now, he's a phenomenal human being, right? But he's a lot of us comm guys are a little dorky. And he gets out of his 3 Series BMW with a fedora and these Birkenstock sandals. And hey, guys, you need some help? And by that point, Thor's about to pee himself because he's laughing so hard. And like, no, we're good. Get it all back. Now, all that drywall, all that epic journey to get it to my house.
Yeah.
Not one sheet was broken.
Whoa.
Not even a dented corner. Nothing.
How in the heck did that happen?
It's
dang. Wow.
I don't know.
I was just about to ask you if any of it was salvageable.
No. Now it had road scars.
That's nuts.
I could patch that.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So Thor's laughing. Well, in the squadron at that point, Kerry had instituted, Colonel Amburn had instituted a broken phone award. And during his commander's call, you got to nominate somebody who did something stupid.
Right. I remember those days. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we're in this commander's call, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get this thing. And so, he's like, who's got nominations? And people start raising their hand. I'm like, oh, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. Huh. I'm like, sweet. Thor kept his mouth shut. Outstanding.
Oh.
He goes, those are all pretty good, but I got a story for you.
Oh, he told the story.
No, Thor ratted me out to the squadron commander.
Oh.
And so, I get the broken phone award and the, kind of moved on. But end of my time there, I did a deployment to Al Ubaid, Camp Cupcake, I called it.
Yeah. I've been there myself. So
yeah, we went into Iraq for a while and, doing some things and working at Ali and Talil air bases and Balad. And
what year was that you went over there?
08.
Okay. Oh, that's almost surge time, right?
Oh yeah. Right. So
that's
it's Al Ubaid. It's hotter than blazes, 130 degrees. I'd never been on a deployment before. And well, I met a couple of really awesome teammates. The Light Colonel, just put on Light Colonel, Mustang. He's the one that we're trouncing all over Iraq together and trying to stay out of trouble. And but we worked for a Fulbright Colonel, Dave Urich. And he went on to become the ACCA 6 as a 1-star. I almost had him convinced, we had outages with some of the RPAs, and he told me to go figure out why we had all these issues, and got that figured out. And then, but we had lost the air picture, so the Navy had to move the carrier strike group closer in so they could provide the air picture for the kayak until we got it resolved.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I'm trying to figure out how the Navy's going to do that, right? I have no idea because I have no background in the Navy.
Yeah.
And so I go talk to the Navy guys in the kayak, and I'm like, hey, I need to understand more about this. I'm like, well, why don't you just go out to the carrier? I'm like, that's a great idea.
What?
And
Wow.
so I had them set it up. I was going to go out on the cod and spend a week out at the carrier, at war, at sea.
Oh,
and Dave Urick said, no, that's a boondoggle. You're not going.
Oh, okay.
And you talk about let the air out of your lungs, but I was like, how else am I going to understand how the Navy's going to do this? And you're going to ask questions, and I have no idea. I want to go to sea and work with the Navy and understand.
Yeah.
And he never let that happen, and I still hold it against him. I don't think he remembers it, but I do.
Were you lieutenant or a captain by then?
I was the first lieutenant.
Okay.
I came back and pinned captain at Offutt, and then
what year?
What's that?
What year did you come back and pin captain?
It was 08. It was just a little 4-month
okay.
vacation. Okay. It was back when we were only doing 4 months for most of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I badmouthed U.S. AFCENT enough, I guess, and it got up, and so I got orders back to U.S. AFCENT at Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina.
Oh, God.
And went on staff in the Network Operations and Security Center, and really learned a lot from, some phenomenal civilians and contractors. And it was an amazing assignment. The enlisted guys there were fantastic. Got to run information assurance for CENTCOM. So doing all the intrusion detection systems for all of CENTCOM's networks at the tier 1 level.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, as a captain, brand new captain, right?
No kidding. And
my peers across the force were Army lieutenant colonels and whatever else. And
yeah.
The Army has, especially infantry lieutenant colonels, have a way of trying to mentor young company grade officers, particularly Air Force. And at that point, I don't know, I had a number of years in, but I did that for 4 years or 3 years, and then had a weapons school slot. It was going to be the second class in the cyber weapons course. I'd gone through undergraduate network warfare training. I was on track to be an offensive cyber guy. That's what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And, got picked up for that. You get sponsored into that, and had some great friends that hooked me up. And so great, then picked up for weapons school, just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. I'm going to weapons school. I'm going to be a weapons officer. And 4 days later, my buddy calls me, goes, did you volunteer for Afghanistan? Like, hell no, I'm going to weapons school. He goes, yeah, no, you're not. You're going to go to Afghanistan, and you're going to go for a year, and you're going to go on a jet tasking, ILO tasking. You're going to be a combat advisor to Afghan police. Like,
what?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like, you want to talk about deflate, you get yourself pumped up, and you think you're on a certain trajectory, and
sure.
Things happen, and that's what happened to me.
That is truly out of the blue.
Oh, it was crazy. And so I, off to Fort Polk for 4 or 5 months of training, and head out to Afghanistan. At that time we had 2 kids. My youngest was he was about a year and a half old.
Okay.
My first deployment, my one child at that point, she was 2 years old, so we had to do 8 months and let her execute a family care plan because my wife deployed at the same time.
Oh no.
Fast forward a couple of years, now I'm going for a year. My wife is still enlisted. She's still on staff at Shaw, and we got to figure this out. And so for basically a year and a half, I was gone, in combat, playing Army. I had the most amazing soldiers out of Fort Bragg that were my MPs, my Set 4. Nice. Still in touch with them to this day. I'm convinced that I'm here because they did their job well. Halfway through the deployment, our MPs went back to Fort Bragg, and we picked up a bunch of National Guard guys from Texas and California and Illinois. And those guys were true professionals, all of them MPs. A lot of them were, police departments, so they were SWAT teams. So these guys they were on point.
That's cool.
And so spent, a year playing Army in Afghanistan.
What year was that?
That was 12 to 13.
Oh, geez.
And so come home, you see things, and I think all of us that have deployed have stories like that. And
sure.
I don't think any, you come back different. You come back with a different appreciation what it means to be an American, what it means to have the things that we have.
Yeah.
And thankful. And I mean, I had some amazing interpreters. Later on, we were able to get all of them out. So they're in the U.S.
Thank God.
One of them is going to be at my retirement, which means the world to me. So
was this a recent thing that you were able to get them out, or was it back then you were able to get
it was, some of them got out not long after we went into mission.
Okay.
One of them, we got him out right as we were turning over Afghanistan to the government.
Okay.
And so, I get back from Afghanistan. I'm different. Took some time. The Air Force there was only about 200 or 300 of us that did that kind of tasking.
Yeah.
That weren't air advisors. We were ground combat type, doing whatever on MIT teams. And I was an SFAT, Security Forces Advise and Assist team.
Yeah.
And learned a lot about the Army.
Yeah.
And I get back to Shaw. The Air Force had just said that you're moving. They gave us orders to Fort Meade, Maryland. My wife was at Andrews. I went to Fort Meade, and I got picked up for major.
Nice.
And then they said, "Hey, congratulations, you're a school select." Okay, cool.
Whoa.
So that we don't do that way anymore, where you have a separate promotion board or a separate board for schools.
Yeah.
Or where you're doing, school selection right off your promotion board. It's just different now. And so, I got a couple of weeks with my wife, and then she had to report to Andrews, and I had about 2 more months in South Carolina. So not ideal, that we didn't really get a chance to do reintegration and try to learn how to be a family again.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially after,
kind of a high five.
Especially after that deployment. Did you go to one place in Afghanistan? Or did you bounce around all over?
I was kind of all over the place. We were home based out of Herat, which is in the west. But we went, we were the trainers, and then we would hand off as our Afghan counterparts were deploying. We'd hand them off to the Marine Corps down in Helmand. And so met some great Marines, still in contact with them to this day.
Wow, that's great.
Just phenomenal work with the Marine Corps. And, but I spent time in the Southwest and in the West. So
that's tough. So needless to say, you didn't get your Disneyland yellow ribbon trip with the family after you came back from your deployment.
And the Air Force didn't do my reintegration, after being in combat for a year and seeing and doing the things that we did. I got to watch a 3-hour PowerPoint show, and that was my reintegration. And, it's just because we didn't understand, the Air Force as a institution didn't really understand that was a unique mission set, and we weren't really prepared as a service to reintegrate those people.
Right.
And it was also when I got back home, the unit, there was nobody at the airport for me. No pomp and circumstances. I showed back up to sign back into my unit, turn my weapons in, and they're like, "Oh, you're back." And that was how I was treated.
Isn't that maddening to know that we've gone through decades and decades and decades of war, and that to those little details still don't change that much? It's still the same issues that we're having today. Not as grand as it used to be, but still, we should have ironed all those out.
I think it's very situational. It's unit dependent, right?
It is. Right.
Because I've been
the Air Force's, the Air Force's philosophy, instead of deploying whole units,
right?
That AEF concept is tough to keep track of, and that's I've always kind of cursed that. But
well, we're a learning institution, right? And we go through ebbs and flows, and I think it's really back down to the individual unit leaders.
It is. Right.
To understand. And I was on a 9th Air Force staff, USAF staff. So deploying was pretty common, but I was the only one that I'm aware of that ever did something like that.
Yeah, sure.
And, I put together a briefing because I wanted all young conversations. I'm over there playing Army tactical comm guy. I'm a convoy commander. I'm a truck commander. I'm a, G2 advisor. I'm a G6 advisor. I mean, you just do whatever it is. And I think we can anybody that's deployed can understand that. You do the mission. What you need, what you see needs to get done, get it done. Whether it's your job or your career or not, get it done.
Right.
and you learn a lot from that. And my soldiers taught me so much. And I had a conversation with them like, hey, I shoot a lot. I love shooting and hunting and whatever else, but I am not a soldier. I am not trained in this. You tell me where to point and what to engage, and that's what I'm going to do. And they're like, no problem. And they did. And it worked out beautifully because goes back to playing your position on the team.
Yeah.
We're taking fire and engaging. Thankfully that was not in my wheelhouse, but we had that conversation, like, the sergeant first class or the master sergeant takes over, and leave that rank crap at the door. You're another shooter, another marksman. Engage what I tell you to engage and copy all.
Sure.
But learned a lot about Army comms and what Army goes through. As I said, I get home, I go to Fort Meade, and they're like, hey, you're going to school. I'm like, but I don't know where. Join the Cyber National Mission Force, which is very fledgling then. I'm an offensive cyber guy working for an Army 1-star, George Franz. And then George swapped out. He's been long retired. General Franz was amazing. And started working for a guy named Paul Nakasone. And he's now currently about to retire. Phenomenal leader, taught me a lot. And kind of helped me when you screwed up with him. It was, and he's kind of revectoring you, as we say. You felt like you disappointed Dad, and he pushed me hard, and my team hard, and all of us team leaders hard, because we were a joint force. He taught me words matter. And if you say right now, you better mean right now, because sometimes we use it flippantly. But and I ended up working at Fort Meade for about 9 years in various roles. Team
9
leader.
years. Wow.
I was there 9 years.
Holy.
Minus a year of that because they sent me to school with the Army at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, for Command and General Staff College.
CGSC, yeah. How did you manage 9 years without? Did you do some PCAs in there to stay there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I did 3+ years or so as a team lead, standing up a new mission set and learning how all of that work, doing defensive cyber ops and offensive cyber ops and whatever. Doing some really cool work.
You were promoted to major there, I would assume.
I was a major select for 2.5 years.
2.5 years. It just never came up. That
was the point where we decided to cancel the 2005 promotion board. And so all of us that had line numbers, they just stretched out the promotion cycle. It was a cost saving measure.
Oh.
And so peers of mine that were 2 months ahead of me in commissioning are now 8 months, 9 months ahead of me in time and grade. And for the folks after me, I've got a friend that was in that year group, and they kind of got hosed. So all my peers are 04s, 05s, and here I am as an 03 promotable. But I'm still an 03, right? Finally put on major. They send me off to Command and General Staff College. Great year of my life. The 77 of us that were there as the Air Force element were really tight. And then working with my Army teammates, we were about 8 or 9 years older than our Army teammates.
Yeah, sure.
But learned so much and have so much more respect for how and why the Army does things the way they do it.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to go to CGSC because I wanted to play in our background. I didn't have to play in our background.
What year was that you went?
That was 16 to 17.
Okay. Nice.
Got picked up for command out of that. Go back to Fort Meade in a small detachment, on G series orders. And in the comm world, there's only a few of us detachments. We were the size of a squadron, but we were detachments. All the same authorities that a squadron commander has, but not the staff. And
that's the best way to put it.
Yeah. And I'm working at one of our premier cyber wing, the 67 cyber wing, working for some great leaders there. They were in San Antonio. I'm at Fort Meade.
How new was that wing when you were there? I mean, because that's cyber hasn't. Have they really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I thought that was a fairly new development over the last decade or so.
Within the last decade or so. But the units that are part of that wing, and its sister wing, the 680A cyber wing, They've been around a while. It's just, we play the shell game. What's old is new. What's new is old.
I got you.
And so it's just a reorganization. And of course, now they're all under the 16th Air Force, so that's the ISR side, the intel side, and the cyber side, which is awesome. But, being in command, we were doing advanced capability development, doing some really cool stuff. My airmen were just crushing it. I mean, and we were doing it for the Air Force's benefit, working with some great mission partners.
Yeah.
And it was so cool because, I'm not mission anymore, right? And so I don't get to sit and do the cool stuff. I'm making sure that they're taken care of. And I loved it. The officers, the enlisted, my lone civilian was a retired chief. And so, one moment he was my tech advisor, the next moment he's my chief.
That's great.
And he taught me so much about leadership. He's still around up there. And love me some Greg. Still in touch with him on occasion today. But then I go right into cybercom staff. I take over, I go to JPME2 at Norfolk, then more Army, more Navy. Spent a lot of time learning from surface warfare officers, senior guys that are going into major command. Wow. I think one or two of them is a flag officer now. So clearly I'm not the performer they were. We had a chief master sergeant, Space Force chief, T2. And she's doing wonderful things in the Space Force now. Come out of that, going back in, I ended up standing up a division at Cybercom J5, doing force design, concept development, got to build some really cool toys that are in use today in various mission sets. Just an awesome experience working for some amazing Navy flag officers and senior civilians. And then went through
That's amazing how much inter-service interaction that you had,
Well, being on a combatant command staff, you have to learn the other cultures. I had an IS-2 sailor, fresh off carrier, E5, right? She's salty. And I don't understand Navy culture. I understand Army structures and Army culture because I've done a lot of time with the Army.
Yeah.
And my IS-2, I said, hey, you're going to have to take me to class. I'm the dumb kid here. And so she would explain the Navy culture, and she'd been on a carrier. So she's explaining how the carrier, the ship staff versus the air wing. And, I toured the Gerald R. Ford in a couple of times. And so she would take me to class, right?
Yeah.
And was able to work with, across the joint staff and with other combatant commands. It was awesome. But it came to a time where I had to make a decision. My wife had retired by that point. I've got 4 kids. When I went to CGSC, my youngest was 6 weeks old, and I went GeoBatch.
Oh, jeez.
And only got to see my daughter for three times in a year, or 4 times in a year, only for a couple of days at a time. But that's the military life, right?
Sure. That's
a possibility. You sign up for that. It doesn't mean you have to like it, but you're prepared for that. That's why we have family care plans. That's why we have the many military family members that, are part of our inner structure, and our civilian neighbors and just cover down on you. And, while I was in CGSC, my wife went through a really hard time. It was tough on her.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a neighbor, his kids had been grown and gone, or, were just about out of the house, and he missed that. So they would go over to my neighbor's house while my wife went to Andrews with our baby, my older 2 kids. And Pat would go shopping for him. He loved talking to my kids.
Oh, yeah.
At breakfast time, he would make a breakfast, even though they'd already eaten, he would make more breakfast. And he loved that time. And my neighbors in Maryland were absolutely the best. And I think that's why I stayed there as long as I did, because I had, for the first time, had neighbors that were phenomenal. They covered down on us and all of our antics and our crazy dogs and, all the, I'm a Clark Griswold, so I decorate my house with the dancing light shows because I'm a nerd. And the neighbors loved it and whatever, but they really took care of us.
That's a rare thing.
It really is. But it goes back to the family. And the central theme to all of this for me was, I don't believe that any service member is successful in their career without an entire Army
Oh yeah.
of people supporting them in various ways. If it's on duty, then it's your crews and your team that's backstopping you and really providing you that expertise. And the same, you do the same for them.
Yeah.
You're bringing young service members to your house during the holidays and checking in on them. I love that. The Army calls it a family readiness group. We have the Airmen and Family Readiness Center on the Air Force side. I don't remember what the Marine Corps and the Navy call it. But we have all these organizations out there that really cover down, and they really did take care of us.
Yeah.
And we did our best to take care of them. And, you know, I was at JPME too. Unfortunately, Pat passed away. The guy that was feeding my kids breakfast.
Oh, geez. Wow. How old was he? Was he a retired guy? Was he old?
No, Pat was probably maybe late 50s. So he wasn't old.
Oh.
I mean, I guess by my standards today, when I was 20, he was a geezer. But, you know, now at that point, but he talked about in his eulogy how special it was to have that time with my kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's
anyway. So yeah, it was kind of just an amazing experience. And oof, it hit me in the feels.
well, it's always remarkable how much, you know, part of the military thing is go, right? You know, you got to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to play the field that you're on, and you got to go here, you got to go there, while your wife and family may have to go someplace else. And you're at such a speed that when something like that happens, that's when I would imagine that's when that big perspective comes in, and you go,
sure.
Whoa, wait a minute. I don't mean to speed by all these things, but I have to because of the career. But that's got to take a toll on you after a period of time. Not only the individual loss, but there's got to be some kind of reflection where you go, oh, you know, not seeing the kids always go. Good friend of yours passes, and that's when you start. I don't know. It would for me. Did it do that for you? Did it start going, maybe I should start slowing this down? Or
yeah, absolutely. I think that was kind of that realization that, you know, where are your priorities? You know, there's an old adage about, and we've all heard the stories. I think every service member has heard them in some degree, where you come home from a deployment and you come back to your house and there's no furniture, no lights on. He or she is gone. Because they've had enough. And, you know, when you think about it from that perspective, okay, that what did you sign up for? You know, and I always said, when do I get my life back? And I've chosen to serve as long as I have, and you're in a relationship with your service. And
that's true. That's a good way to,
you know, and on this side, you know, we've got a contract, and every 4 or 6 years, whatever your length is, that's your opportunity to reevaluate your relationship with the service. And if your priorities and the service's priorities are still in sync, right?
Yeah.
And as an officer, you don't have that. You don't have a contract, right?
Right.
And so, you know, as I got to thinking, as I'm progressing on, I'm well north of 20 at this point, kind of thinking about how far do I want to take this? And, you know, my wife's retired, but, you know, she'd had her issues and medical issues and stuff. And,
sure.
You know, I see the toll it's taken on my family, and, you know, I know that my 06 board's coming up on me, in a few years. And I'm like, I need to really start thinking about this hard, and where we want to settle down, and how far this journey wants to go. And, you know, I already came in older, commissioned older. So
yeah.
I got to really think about this hard. And I think when Pat passed, that kind of set it in stone. I mean, his kids were grown, but he's never going to get to see his daughter walk down the aisle,
yeah, sure.
Or graduate college, or his son, you know, get married. And you know, Pat was a healthy guy, just cancer got him, right? And, but it just kind of put things in perspective for me, that you don't know how much time you have on this earth. And if you focused all your time in uniform, that's what defines you. you've lost sight of what's really important. You were a civilian before you came in, and you will be a civilian again.
That's right.
And so where do you find value? Where do you find importance? Some guys can do 30, 40 years and their family understands that, and that's great for them. That's their journey. Mine looks like I'm done at 27. And so as we started to think about that, right, and all the time, the years that between my wife and I, we'd spent away from our family, and the kids and the boss lady was like, "Hey, keep going. We know you love what you're doing, Dad." And I'm like, "Thank you, but I know what 06 life looks like, and it's time that I take myself out of the running for that." And I made some decisions to do that. And my kids are amazing. My wife being a vet, right? We can have that conversation, and she understands. She has that perspective. My kids don't. They didn't sign up for this life. They were born into it just like I was. And so we started thinking about, what's next, and kind of started thinking, all right, it's time. Where do we want to settle? I'm not going back to Mississippi. My wife's from Washington State. I'm not going there. Not moving to California. We started discounting places for a lot of reasons where we weren't going to live.
Yeah.
We saw about Colorado. And so we bought some property here, decided to come back. And, hey, that piece of dirt, and that's what I tell people now, is like, what does your end state look like? Where's your flagpole? Where's victory lane? Yeah. Whatever analogy you want to use. And I needed that ground that belonged to us, that was not tied to the military. We owned it. And whether we built on that property or not, whatever, right? Yeah. That was our dirt, and we could sell it. We could do whatever. And then we started really thinking about it as PCS is coming up, and like I'm ready to leave DC. It's not my thing. Some people enjoy it. Not my thing. I'm a out west guy. I like the mountains and the country roads, and no traffic, or tumbleweeds and antelope or traffic for me now. And I enjoy it deeply. But that's what our end state looks like. And so the Air Force is coming up, say, it's time for you to PCS. I'm like, great, get me the heck out of here. I'm done with DC. Amazing friends there from scouts and from the military, and from,
especially after a decade of being there too,
yeah. So you get entrenched, right? And there's positives and there's negatives to that. Right. Went through COVID there, and all the things that we're still paying the price for now, all of us. Yeah. And so I told the Air Force, I said, here's the deal. I'm in the driver's seat now. I don't have anything holding me in the Air Force. My end state looks like Colorado Springs. I'm going back to Colorado Springs in the summer of 22. I would prefer to do that in uniform. That meets my end goals. If that makes sense for you and for the best needs of the Air Force, great, PCS me, let's go. Yeah. If that doesn't, let me know, and I will retire tomorrow. And my assignment team, friends on the assignment team, are fantastic. They said, we can make that happen for you. Oh. And so they did. So I ended up at U.S. Space Command, and it's been an amazing time in my career in. And it's what I tell any vet now. It's like, hey, this is your personal journey. The amazing people from my enlisted days and my officer days, the people that have worked for me, the people that I've worked for, I just really want to thank each one of them. And it kind of leads us to today, right? And how we got together.
Oh, well, sure. Do you mind if I back up a little bit, sir?
Sure.
Can you tell me about, because you never even mentioned it, and I think it's there's something I always wanted to get to, but your lieutenant colonel promotion.
Oh.
How did that, were you first time go on that board, and
yeah,
how did all that go?
And
what year did you get promoted?
I got promoted in 19.
Nice.
Or
right?
No, I'm sorry. I came out on the list. So I came out on the list, I guess, in 21, and I promoted in. No, golly, no. Now you got me thinking. I came out on 19. I ended my tour, and a friend of mine, Kerry Amber, my first squadron commander, he had us be his presiding officers at his promotion or his retirement ceremony. So I'm a major at the time. Had a line for 05. The other guy was a major, and then Stacy was already a lieutenant colonel. And so we went down to ACC and we retired him. So he's former colonel, ACCA 6. We retired Kerry. And right after he retired, I said, Kerry, I want you to be my promoting officer. This will be my last one. And so all of us drove to Mississippi because my family had never seen me promote to any rank ever.
Wow.
So we did a family reunion, and I'm from a large family. So the whole family got together. Kerry drove down and promoted me in front of my family.
Wow.
There's a point here, though, that you got to be careful of. And I think all of us have to. Most of our parents don't know what we do or what we've done.
That's true.
And I might have gotten in trouble with my mom because Kerry starts reading stuff from my Afghanistan days, and she came up to me at the end of that. She goes, "You never told me about all that." And I said, "Well, it wouldn't have done you any good. All you'd have done is worry." And then there would have been 2 of us that didn't get any sleep. And so, yeah, the lieutenant colonel was special for me because I got to do it in front of my family.
That's awesome.
And so now, retiring as a lieutenant colonel and doing that here in Colorado, it's pretty wild.
I'm sure when you were trying to make the decision, especially about this last assignment, but they must have been coming and talking to you and say, hey, you're going to have to take a squadron. You got to take some squadron command, right? Because if you're going to stay in, they want you to progress, right?
Yeah, I got a phone call from a guy I'd worked for very briefly by the name of Jim Hewitt, and Colonel Hewitt was outstanding leader, and he called me up and said, "Hey, really want you to take this squadron, right? And are you interested?" And that squadron was in San Antonio. And at this point, I'm way north of 20 years, and so I'm doing what I do because I love what I do. I still love what I do, and I love the people that I do it with, but I love my family more. And I told Jim, I said, "Look, if it was working for you, I'd be down there in a heartbeat." Yeah. But Jim was about to swap out from a group commander. He was moving on to other things. And I just really didn't want to go back to San Antonio. Basic training was enough for me. San Antonio is an amazing place with amazing people, an awesome mission for the jobs down there. And my hat's off to them. But at that point, I made the decision. It was like, no, it's time for me. And I think all of us reach that point. I knew that I was still leaving things on the table. I had more to give. And I was asked that question, do you feel like you're leaving stuff on the table? And I said, absolutely. Sure. But I look at my 4 children and I looked them in the face, and it's like, it's time to be dad. Yeah. Full time. No distractions, no possibility of PCSing, no more deployments, no more anything.
Right.
I need to focus on being 100% there for my wife and for my children. And that does not look like continuing military service.
Well, and at that point, and at that point, you're not being fair to your family, and you're not being fair to the Air Force either.
That's right. That's exactly right. The airman that needs your full attention, your family that needs your full attention, you reach a point where you have to make that decision. And I told that to the Air Force and to the senior leaders that had been so gracious and so incredible for me. I cannot be all in anymore.
Yeah.
I cannot give the Air Force everything. I've done that for a number of years, more than 2 decades. It is time for me to step aside and let those who are able and willing to do that for the best needs of our airmen and for our mission set. I will continue to serve in whatever capacity that I can, as a civilian, as a retiree, as a contractor, whatever that may look like. It's time.
What advice would you give if your son comes and says, "Hey, I want to go into the military"? And you could tell it now because it could be a while.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll listen to us, maybe he won't. Or your daughters. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Your kids. I should have just said one of your kids.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I'll ask them why. What is it that is attractive? And it's really not just about the Air Force, it's all the services. We've got 5 services to choose from.
Yeah.
Why are you considering the military? What is it that is compelling you to join? Is it college? That's okay. GI Bill's a wonderful thing. Yeah. I mean, I've used the heck out of it and tuition assistance, and that's why I have the education that I do, is because of the military.
Yeah.
because I talk about what I kind of briefly spoke about it earlier. You're in a relationship. You're going to do things that you do not want to do, that are awful. To use a kind of a crass term, it sucks.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to pay that price. And you're going to do things that you never thought you would do. You're going to achieve things that you never thought possible. You're going to go places that are not pleasant, potentially. Sometimes they are. But like my brother, his first assignment was Mildenhall, England, and then he kind of went to some less desirable places. And he continues to serve in the reserve. But
I asked him, still?
Yeah, he did 14 years enlisted as a tech sergeant.
Yeah.
And then ended up going to law school and getting his degree, and now is a JAG officer in the reserves.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah.
And so you find yourself in this position, and I this is the same thing I would tell any person considering the military. What are you willing to give? What are you looking for? Because you are in a relationship. Youngsters, and we got these great commercials that talk about, the Army's got a cool one now about being airborne.
Oh yes.
And every airborne soldier I've ever met was, talking about how many jumps they had, or if they were a jump master.
Yeah.
And really high speed, cool stuff. But what does your end state look like? And it's about a mentoring. And I had the same conversation with anyone. So do I support the military and going in? Absolutely. It has been a phenomenal life for me. And I think for you as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's given me everything I got. So yeah.
We talk, well, yeah. And we talk about, how so-and-so is great. Well, they were great before they came in the military. Maybe they were just a diamond in the rough, need some polish. And we got that through, experiences and phenomenal supervisors, bad commanders. But it helped bring out those things of us that perhaps were hidden gems, and realize that we can do more than what we thought we could.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, sir.
So I effectively dodged that question pretty well, I think. Yeah, I guess it depends, right? For me, it was the only option I had to be successful. I needed to change. And, my kids are way better kids than I was, because the cops knew us, but the MPs knew us well. The hospital knew us well. We were always in trouble with the cops or with the MPs or
right.
the medics, right? But the military is different now. Sure. And I'll say this, and for I don't think any young person is going to want to listen to my old guy talk, but I love working with the young 18, 20-year-olds. Love it. People bag on that generation all the time. And it irritates me, because you're looking at it from the old guy lens, right? We were talked to by the old guys, and they were blasting us as being the youngsters, and we didn't understand. And
absolutely.
Whatever.
Yeah, same thing.
My young intel analysts and comm troops and soldiers are the most amazing Americans that you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
And you just got to adjust your leadership style and how you talk to them. It's not about them adjusting to us. We have to adjust to them. And when you do that, you stand out of the way, because they're going to run you over. So they're sharp, talented, driven Americans that are looking to do the right things. And so now I'm like, I can't keep up with them. So like, what can I do to help you be successful? And that's where I'm going to have to resolve myself at this point.
Did we get it all, sir?
Well, I'll say one more thing about coming full circle. We talked about this crazy major that pushed me to be an officer. And through your podcast, I've been able to reconnect with him. And in fact, I'll have a beer with him next week, is the hope, and kind of catch up. And, we'd lost touch over the years, but talking about those moments in time where you take the, brief period of your life and you give it to someone else to encourage them, to support them. Ron did that for me. It pushed me hard. And was not willing to take no for an answer. And, without him, I don't know that I would have ever taken the leap of applying for a commission. I needed that encouragement from him. I'm the first officer in my family. A fact that my dad reminds me of often. As a retired NCO, and my wife gives me crap too. But to have those people that believe in you and to trust you, and to, all these years later, they've given me, those same people have given me their sons and daughters to be to care for them, lead them in combat, lead them in some important missions. And now it's time to pass the torch. And that goes back to Ron Nieper. And so I'm incredibly grateful and thankful that Crazy Major pushed me all those years ago to go down this path.
It is pretty amazing because somebody he just met and it's like, why does this guy keep calling me? Jeez, get off my back.
Wasn't a flyer. I wasn't, anything. And the journey, and each of our journeys is different. And mine has been some crazy lefts and rights. And, I think back at really most importantly about all the amazing people that have been a part of my journey, and just want to thank them. Yeah, I'm blessed. My heart's full. And thank you for doing this. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
It's been a privilege to take your story and an honor to let you tell it to me, sir. I appreciate that.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate that very much.
United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Owen Freeland, thanks for your story, sir.
Appreciate it very much. Appreciate the time.
And good luck with your retirement.
It should be fun. It'll be my way. It's going to be a party, celebration, if you will.
Very good. Thank you, sir. On behalf of Lieutenant Colonel Freeland, I'd like to thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please leave a like and a comment and share the podcast with someone else. And as always, make sure to download the next episode for more service origin stories. So until next time, on your feet, dismissed.